Hello, and welcome to this edition of Showing Up with Pam. I'm very excited today because I have one of my former bosses, and I'm excited to talk to him and tell him some stuff that he probably does not know. But before I do that, let me go ahead and introduce you to him. His name is Robert Vega, and Robert is a certified project manager with over 25 years of management and consulting experience working with leadership teams to design and implement project, program, and portfolio management practices. His leadership skills enable him to pull together and motivate a team to swiftly organize projects and programs designed to achieve the vision of a company. Over the years, his experience has been leveraged to spearhead enterprise-wide initiatives to develop and implement methods and practices to improve project and program management operations for Fortune 500 companies. His industry experience includes aerospace, financial services, hospitality management, manufacturing, payment processing, public utilities, quick service restaurant, retail, and travel leisure. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Robert to the show. Hi, Robert.
Good morning.
How are you?
Technically challenged. So all of those things that you said about me need to have a caveat that says, and does not understand the first thing about technology. But
No. You do just fine. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. So it's great to see you. It's been a while, but you look fantastic.
Oh, thank you. You do too. Are you in your office?
Well, you know what? Office / granddaughter's bedroom. So I had to wake her up early and say, "Hey, listen, I need this. I need the office this morning."
Well, please thank her for me.
I will. I absolutely will. Yeah. Who knows? We may have a cameo visit, or she may be hear from her in a little bit. So who knows?
That would be great. I would love that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start you off with my signature question, Robert. Tell me, in these different times we're going through, who's been showing up for you big?
Well, that's a great question. You know, that I was reading through some of the prompts, and honestly, I guess I would have to say I don't have a clear answer for you. And here's why I say that, okay? Because I know these are difficult times. And I know that not only with the virus and also the social unrest that we're experiencing, right?
Yes.
I don't lean on a lot of people. What I do is it's my time to reflect. It's my time to reflect on what does this really mean? And I'm a root cause kind of guy, right? And so we've had some flashpoints, right? Especially with social unrest. But what I'm looking for is what is the solution, right? How can we be better as a human race, right? As a community. So I don't talk to a lot of people. It's a very personal thing for me, right? And the same thing with COVID, the same thing with, the shelter in place, our civil liberties, all these things. I'm like, how do we avoid this in the future? So honestly, you know what? I would say it's given me time just to sit and reflect introspectively on what these things are. Now, every now and then I'll go out to a mentor or something like that and I'll say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or how can we do this better? And I'm blessed because I've got lots of great mentors and colleagues and stuff like that. So anyway, there's my photo bombers coming in right now. So,
excellent.
Hey, girl, come here for a second.
Come say hi.
This is June. Okay, she looks like a kitty. She looks like a kitty cat, but she's not. And then here's my other granddaughter, Ada.
Oh, hi. How are you? Nice to meet you.
And this is Pamela Dukes. She's somebody I worked with up in Dallas.
Hi.
Hi. It's nice to meet you. Well, my eyes are tearing up. They are so cute.
Yeah, we have a good time. So we're lucky, in San Antonio that they're not that far from us. And we get to see them all the time. So it's a good thing from a grandfather's perspective. So going back, so honestly, Pamela, I take it very personally. I wish that all this reflection that I'm doing, the challenge is finding a way to communicate that. Because I think I'm a pretty pragmatic guy. I always said I'm the half of the class that made the top half possible, right?
Yeah.
So So I look at kind of like simple, sustainable change that we need to make. And so I guess in a way, I'm buoyed by those people that stand behind me and have always been a part of my life and help shape some of my introspection. That includes you and the teams that we've worked with and stuff like that. So that's the way that's a little bit different answer maybe, but that's what I have to, those are my thoughts.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So I know you work with a lot of C-suite people, and I'm really curious to get your insights into some of the things you think that they are doing well or better, and some of the areas where we still could use some improvement.
Okay. So that's interesting. Another interesting question. My perspective on the organizations I've run into recently is that not a lot of vision. Not a lot of vision.
Wow.
And so to me, leadership is around vision. Okay, that's number one. Number two is enabling your team to understand and enable that vision through their own personal and professional commitment. Okay. I don't see a lot of that. What I see is I see leaders that were great managers, are very domain subject matter experts that have now been elevated to a leadership position, but they don't really understand what that means, right? And so I'll tell you, I'll give you two great examples. There was a financial services company here in San Antonio that I had the opportunity to work with. Great leader, great vision, very mature, very disciplined. Boy, you knew what success looked like. Same thing with in DC. I was working with a company, and I'll give you his name, Bill Marriott, who is one of the elder statesmen of the Marriott family. And you saw his commitment on a daily basis. He didn't say a lot, but you saw it and you felt it, and you were committed to him because you felt like he was committed to you. That is not what I see today. Today, I see a lot of people just saying, okay, how do I get to this level, right? And how do I protect my position? You and I worked in an organization that was a little bit like that. And I would say it's a little, what's the word? We fed on each other, right? We were meat eaters, and we were eating on each other. And that is an unhealthy environment. And so when you see that, where really smart people don't know how to lead, then you really have to make a personal and professional decision. Do I want to stick around for this or not, right? And my attitude is run as fast as you can. Run as fast as you can. Now, don't get me wrong. There's something to learn in that too. There's a lot of takeaways. Oh my God. I will never ever leave my laptop open with audio on late at night. I shut it down because I would hear the pings of people they didn't have anything else to do, so they were blasting me. And this was when we were working together in Dallas. And it was not a peaceful rest, and I always knew it was coming from. And I always knew it was going to be negative. So,
let's reflect a little bit about when we worked together, shall we?
Sure.
I remember, I definitely felt like there was a lot of growing for me to do when we worked together. And from what I remember, my situation is I came in as a senior project manager, and then I'd heard that the CTO was turning over almost every year. So, you talk about vision. Imagine having a new vision every year of what we're going to do.
Right.
And before I knew it, they had promoted me to be the boss of everyone, and I was the newest person. So you can just imagine how well that went over.
Oh, sure.
And then after a while, they decided they needed a more strategic vision, and then they brought you in. And I remember that was a little weird because at first people reported to me, and then we all reported to you. So there was a minute where I thought, wait a minute, what just happened? But then you came in and you were so calm, and you were such a force of relief and motivation. And I really felt like, okay, he's got us. I don't have to worry about this anymore. So you really helped us out a lot, Robert.
Well, I'll tell you what so it was completely different on my side. I'll just be honest with you. Okay.
Sure.
And that is, I'll tell you a couple of things, and I hope it doesn't come across the wrong way, because that's not what I intended to do. Okay. But I knew a little bit about the situation coming in, right? And what my real goal is just to see if we could prop ourselves up. get everybody kind of understanding loosely a framework that we could succeed in. That's
Right.
really what I was about. But
Right.
what I had to deal with are a new guy on the block, a relationship with a CIO, you know, a little bit of things that look like nepotism, could look like nepotism. Where does this guy come from?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that I was kind of going, regardless of which way we moved, it was going to be a change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you something, you showed great character in all of that. As a matter of fact, the whole team did, but you especially, because that is tough for somebody to come in and you're just trying to implement your leadership style, your communication style. It's your right to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Leaders want other leaders to develop their style. And then I
Right.
came in and just kind of circumvented that. And
Mm-hmm.
what I really what I think was, you asked me to think about our time together. I can't think of many specific times. What I do think of is we spent a lot of time on situational management, and we talked about how we would bring the team together and those kinds of things. And then the other thing you helped me understand is people, right? What's the dynamic of this person? What's Valerie like? What's Lee
Yeah.
like? You know, those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. Hey, you know what? You're not getting a lot of play with Emma because Emma's pissed, right? You know, that kind of thing. Emma was, yeah, the reality of it is Emma was always pissed. So, you know, it was like, okay.
Oh my God.
So I do remember.
He started early, y'all.
Yeah. So I remember all of those things,
Uh-huh.
and they were in the moment. I
Mm-hmm.
always felt good about our conversation, whether it was very constructive or very like critical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I thought it helped us grow. I
Mm-hmm.
remember a meeting that we were in. It was you,
Mm-hmm.
me, Lee, and somebody else. I can't remember who else at the table. And we were trying to get the Toronto team to talk to us, right, about some things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a young man by the name of Alex Kovalev. And I said, hey, you got to start attending these sessions. And he said, well, I'll see what I can do. And I remember you guys all pushed back from the table like, whoa, what do you mean? You know, you'll try to work me into your schedule. To me, it was like, no, we're a team, and teams dominate, right?
Yep.
It's like Michael Jordan saying, I'm not going to come to practice that day. He set an example by saying, I'll be the first one at practice.
Absolutely.
When he was the last one that needed to be at practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, those kinds of things about how we grew as a team are always, I'm always going to remember. I was thinking about it before we got on the call. I was like, do I remember everybody? And I was like, Jonathan Triano and, you know, Lee and Cheryl and Angela, you know, all you guys. And so you'll always be a part of a great part of my memory. So, yeah.
I have 3 Robert stories.
Okay. Uh-oh.
First one, I remember something happened where I did something and the team was praising me in our chat channel. And so I remember there was someone who I didn't exactly get along with, but we tried. And she said a comment, and that kind of hurt my feelings. So I went right back in and I made a comment. And then she accused me of harassing and bullying her based on my comment. And I remember I had a conversation with you, and we went to HR, and you can't even imagine how horrified I was, because I don't go to HR, Robert. That's just not what I do. And I remember you taught me, and you said, you brought me in the office and you said, you're a leader. And you had like this gritted face. And I was just like, you know, I just wanted to put my hands in my face because I thought, I've let myself down. I've let you down. It's over. And you taught me that. My second story to tell about Robert, let me see, what was I going to say? Oh, I came in one Saturday because I was trying to schedule, I think, a stakeholder meeting with the CEO. And you know, his schedule's crazy. And so he had said, okay, let's do it this time. And so I was trying to get one of our directors in our department to go along with it. And he kept sending notes about, you need to check my schedule. And when I'm available, you can book the meeting. And I was trying to tell him, listen, the schedule I have to listen to is the CEO's, all right? I can't go around everyone else's schedule. And so I moved the meeting Saturday, and he fired back off the comment about I needed to check his schedule and blah, blah, blah. So I fired back a comment, and I said, listen, buddy, I'm working with the CEO's contract. And you know what he did? He wrote me back and copied you. I'll never forget it. And I was the level of anger. I was so mad. And at that point, I just folded up and I went home. I said, I'm not working here Saturday for these people. And I remember you came in on Monday. You saw it, and you went, you pulled him in your office, and I guess you coached him like that's not how we handle things. And then you pulled me in, and I'll never forget. You said, "Pam, you can always wait till tomorrow to have an argument." And I've carried that with me, Robert, because it's true. If I had come in Monday, it wouldn't have mattered at all. But right then, I was hot, and I went. Yeah. And you taught me that, Robert.
Yeah. Well, can I? So I'll tell you a couple things. One is that I did the same thing as you did. Absolutely, that's how I learned the lesson, right? And like I always joke about, hey, I said my favorite question in any interview is talk to me about your failures, because I don't care about successes. I really don't. I learn a lot more, through my failures. Now that's kind of cliche, but it's absolutely true. If you take a few minutes to reflect on those things. And so I did. I failed in that regard. And I had somebody who was kind enough to come to me and say, Robert, had you just waited a day, it would have taken, your points are well taken, but you could have taken the emotion out of that communication, because all people see in that regard is confrontation, conflict, and they don't even hear what you're saying, right? And so, I only coached you because I made that same mistake. And honestly, Pam, you're a smart cookie. You're a smart cookie. And so I knew you would understand if I could present some scenarios to you. And I'm just glad. I'm glad I've had enough mistakes to try to help other people not fall into that same, hole, so to speak.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My third Robert story is when we had this big project. I don't know if we were trying to upgrade the software or decide if we were going to use what our English folks were using versus what we were doing in America. And it was this huge problem. And so we would get in meetings and talk about how big the problem was and what we were going to do. And finally, you just stood up and you said, "You know what? I'm done admiring the problem. Let's go." And that was it. And I remember you kind of walked out, and I just thought, hey, is that what we're doing? We're admiring the problem and not solving it? And I've used that, Robert. When people say stuff, I say, you know what? I'm done admiring the problem. What are we going to do? And I just feel so smart when I say it.
Oh, my God. In a few words, you can pretty well sum it up. It's people we got to move, right? Pick a direction and go. And I honestly, I don't know where I got that. Hey, Pamela, there's nothing original here, right? Every now and then I might say something that's original, but even my family teases me about, well, that's probably a line from a movie or some lyric from a song. And I don't forget some things, and that drives people crazy. They're like, you'll never forget that. And it's like, no, unfortunately I won't. And I don't know why I still have it up here in the old noodle, but it still stays there sometimes, so maybe longer than it should.
No, I carry that stuff with me. And it's funny because now that I'm a little older and I'm working with teams and I see people doing things that I used to do. And so I quickly see it like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I remember Pam 1.0, right?
It was more like 0.5.
It's the beta. It was the beta release. No doubt. No doubt about it.
I'm at 3.0 right now. And I'm just going, Robert.
That's good. No, that's good.
I'm on fire.
I enjoy following you and the stuff that you're doing, and I really admire you. I always had a lot of admiration for you. So
we're back at you, Robert.
Yeah.
So tell me, what motivates you nowadays?
What motivates me now? I was going to look this up. I'll send it to you offline, but I think in the I am 80. I'm like, what is it? ADHD or ADD? Attention deficit guy, right? So everything motivates me. I love the challenge that's facing us from a business perspective, from a technology perspective, even from a personal perspective, right? What are my core values now? I love it. I really do. Some people get frustrated with it and they're wringing their hands and I'm like, you know what it does? Gives you an opportunity to reflect and reinvent yourself. And I think we should be, as a community, business and personal and socioeconomic and cultural, we should always be reflecting on the beautiful things in our history and bringing those forward to reinvent ourselves. So what excites me? books that help me understand how to think outside the box. You know, Pamela, I'm 66 years old. What do I need to think outside the box for? I should be this old fogey, this old codger that's sitting around saying, you know, you know, this is what we used to have, and we loved it that way, right? But that,
No, no, no.
but that's not how I feel. Some of my peers do. They kind of get mired down in, well, this is the way it always used to be, and I've always kind of resisted that. So I don't need a lot to motivate me. I'm pretty well self-motivated. I'm pleased that my friends and my colleagues are like, wow, you're doing that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, God, when are you gonna stop doing this stuff? I'm like, I love, I love where it's gonna take me. I don't know where it's gonna take me, but I'm in love with the thought that there's something good coming around the corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I remember as soon as you said core values, I was like, that's Robert. I got to write that down. Let me ask myself, what are my core values now? How can I reflect on that? What can I do differently?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. All right. So what is your greatest inspiration?
My greatest greatest inspiration. Help me understand what you mean by inspiration. Who inspires me, or what inspire me? What are you talking about?
Well, sometimes people talk about, the work ethic or what they've learned from their parents, and that's sort of their guiding light. Maybe it's, working with kids, maybe it's your children or your grandchildren and trying to kind of empower them and teach them things. I mean, for me, for example, I can easily look back to my parents and grandparents, and I just wouldn't be who I was today if it wasn't for my family. And I still remember things that my mom said, and my dad still says things to me, and my uncles and my aunts. I can just remember that. And it's almost like it's a part of who I am. So even when someone compliments me and says, oh, I like what you're doing that, I say, well, thank you. It's the credit goes to the people who taught me and raised me. It all goes to them.
Yeah, no, I like that answer. I really do. I think that we align very closely on that. If I had to say, is there a person that inspires me the most, was probably my father, right?
Okay.
My father was a very traditional head of the household Hispanic man, right?
Right.
And he brought a lot of culture, his cultural background into our family. The other thing he was a military man. And so he brought a lot of discipline around that culture to our household. And so those are all the things that kind of shape the core values for me. So when I think about inspiration, right? I think when I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do, I'm like, what would Dad say? He didn't say a lot. But when he said something, I always put it in the bank. And I said, yeah, I'm going to need that somewhere down the line, right? And so he's my inspiration. Now, how does that translate into personal and professional, our personas? It permeates through all of it, right? When I think about my professional career, the thing I'd like to think at the end of it is that there have been wonderful people that I've worked with. And because I was with them, life that day was just a little bit better.
Aww.
And the same thing's true with my kids, right? What I found and you're going to learn this, what I found as a parent is it's a tender balance between discipline, rigor, and love, right? Because sometimes those conflict. You know, I want to spend more time on my Xbox. No, that we're not going to do that, right? Because it's not growing you in the area I want you to grow. Right. But they see it as a takeaway. So I wish I would have been more skilled, and maybe in my next life I will, balancing those things. To say love comes in many different flavors, not only for my work teams and my colleagues, but also for my family as well. I mean, that's my hope. And so those things are the things that I think of, when I wake up in the morning. It's like, how am I gonna make the most of this day, and whose lives can we touch? And how do we want to do that? And take a record of it at the end of the day. Dear diary, I really screwed it up today. Me and Pamela got in this heated conversation or something like that, right?
Oh God. Heated conversations. I don't do a lot of heated conversations, Robert.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. People talk about that sometimes. They'll go, why do you think you're right? And I get a lot of criticism about that. Why do you think you're right? And I said, trying to tell you I'm right. I'm demonstrating to you my commitment. And sometimes my commitment comes across as overbearing. And I said, but that's passion. I said, if we are not passionate and committed to something, I said, we'll just float through the stream wherever it wants to take us. And I said, I think we're better than that as professionals and as people, both. So, my kids say it all the time. What do you think is right? I'm like, I know it works. I know it works. And here's my resume. Let me show you all the things that we were able to do. So, so anyway.
Excellent. Are you reading any good books that you'd like to share now? Anything you recommend? I've got my pen ready.
You know what? I'll have to send it to you. There's one by, I think it's either called You Gotta Be Joking. You Gotta Be Joking. And it's by a Nobel Prize winning physicist. Or You Gotta Be Kidding, something like that.
Okay.
And I'll send it to you. I'll send you, I meant to look it up on my phone before we got on the call. That's the one I'm going to read next, and it isn't for the Big Bang enthusiast. It's just this guy's observations. And when I read the synopsis of the book, it said there's different stories and there's a moral to each story, and I love that. But it's all about thinking outside the box, which you clearly understand. But I like the idea that somebody can be in his domain, see the world a particular way or an environmental situation, and relate something that I could take away. And they say it's a pretty easy read. So I don't know. I hope there's pictures, diagrams, or something.
I was going to ask you: do you like to actually hold the book and read it, or do you do Audible? Do you listen at all?
No. I tried audiobooks, and it makes me sleepy. Just be honest with you, it makes me want to go to sleep.
That's not good.
No, it's not good at all. Especially when you're on a cross-country tour and you're trying to listen to some Mark Twain novel. It's impossible. So I'm a page turner. I'm still a page turner. I haven't converted to electronic format. So that's what I do.
What do you do with all your books? Do you ever donate them? Or I can't even imagine like a whole part of your house is full of books.
Well,
do you just keep them? What do you do?
No, so it's interesting because they're usually gifts. In other words, I buy books that I think are for me, but I realize they're really for somebody else, and so I give them away. So, and I'm
writing it down.
Yeah.
Give away your books.
Yeah. So, books are like our thoughts in ways, right? Sometimes a book will express our feelings and our sentiments much better than we can ever do. And so the thought that you're giving somebody a book that's purposeful, it gives them the opportunity to see a little bit about you, deeper than what you can express, right? Because they see you as Pam the mom, or Pam the colleague, or Pam the coach, right? But you give them something to read, and they're like, wow, this is really different. And then they see the beauty of the person that gave it to them. I think books are a beautiful gift, because it's just, you're a lifetime learner. You always need to be challenging yourself in different areas. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for helping me with my Christmas list this year.
I found that with the teams the teams that I've worked with in the last 5-6 years, that's what I learned is I like, what can I give these guys for Christmas? I think I was going back and I was like, did I give you guys anything for Christmas? I think he gave you wine and bottle openers and stuff like that, which is an okay gesture, right? But it's not the same as, hey, here's a book that you could really, that has some really wonderful lessons in it. I think they're really spot on for you. And so that's what I've been doing with my teams is like at Christmas time, I'm like, what could this person use? And, what are these people's interests? And so I try to find books for them and share them. I'm sending a book to a colleague to say, hey, here's what I think you ought to be reading. And she's a great person, and she's kind of struggling with, I'm out of corporate environment. I'm trying to find my next gig. And what am I going to do? And I was like, I got a book for you. I think that you would really enjoy. So it's so personal and so thoughtful. I love that idea. Yeah, I mean, it's a personal thing. I agree with you. It's a personal without getting too touchy feely and huggy and all that other stuff. But it is, I think it's a great gift. And you know how it is with your son, right? You want to find things that he should read that leaves a little bit of an impression on him. And the things that you do and the way you act and the things that you share are all part of that. So
he's working his way through the Harry Potter series. Some of those books are gigantic, Robert.
they are. And, everybody's like, oh, it's just fantasy. It's just heck, man, it's a wonderful imagination.
Yes.
It expresses things that we think are not possible, but are, and characters and what they mean and what they do. I mean, it's great. I think it's a wonderful series. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, I have run out of my questions for you. Did you have any questions you wanted to ask me before we end?
I always have a question, right? I always have a question or two. And
okay.
So tell me about this series and why it's so important to you.
The Showing Up series?
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, it's funny. I started with, I tell people I had this kind of awakening because I learned about this thing called the Harada method. And it taught me that it was a way to set a goal and actually achieve the goal, but it was also working with the coach again. And some of the prep work you do before you get to that point is you start analyzing yourself, you start seeing how well you are in certain categories, how you rate yourself. And then one of the things I realized was my numbers were really low compared to the people in class sitting with me. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what's wrong? What's happened? I'm pretty sure I didn't always think this way. And after a lot of introspection and deep diving, I realized I was hiding. I was not showing who I was. I didn't have my voice. Even when I would meet people, I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, I went to the Olympics or I graduated from Stanford. I hid that because I felt that they would view me a certain way. And then at some point they would kind of not add me to whatever events or things they were doing because that was my experience. So when I realized, okay, we're going to stop that, that's ridiculous, I've sort of come out and found my voice. And part of that, my creativity has just kind of blown up. And I woke up about a month ago and I said, I don't think I've really thanked the people who really had an indelible mark in my life and have helped me. So I'm going to create a show and I'm going to have them as guests and we're going to talk and I'm going to let them know how important and how valuable and what they've contributed to my life. So they can never say, I wonder if Pam ever felt I did anything for her. This is like recorded proof in history that I'm here to say that you have and to thank you. And I'm told that this is inspiring other people to do things. So I like that idea. And from this, I came up with another idea and I'm actually going to start a podcast. And that's going to be a different kind of dialogue I'm going to do. So I've just find that doing this, there's just more opportunities and things for me, one, to thank and reach out to people, but two, to do other things. And I've gotten feedback where people say, oh, this is great. You should do it. We love it. It's open. It's kind of back and forth. It's not very rigid. Keep doing what you're doing. And so that's sort of where the series is. And it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
That's good. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'll close with this.
Yes,
one of the things that we did at Research Now is we had one-on-ones, right? We had that weekly flyby, I think is what we called it, right?
Yes.
And that's a best practice, by the way. So when you're working with teams and you're trying to develop leaders and you're trying to develop your staffs and teams and you're just trying to inspire other people, just a 30-minute commitment, a 45-minute commitment on a weekly basis is huge. So this is what you're doing here is an extension of that, just on a broader scale, right? So
yeah.
So I always ask people when we're doing our one-on-ones, because we always talk about, okay, work, challenges, situational management, that kind of thing. But I always ask, are you happy? And so I'll ask you that question. Are you happy?
I am. And to prove that, I've actually been taking classes in positive psychology, and it's introduced this whole new wing of learning that I hadn't studied. So I'm taking 2 classes now. I just signed up for another one, and it's getting me to understand how people think certain things will make them happy. A high-paying job, a certain car, a home. And one of the things it's taught is that that's not really true. One of the things that happens with things is you get it and you're excited for a while, and then you go back to your baseline and it fades. And the teacher who's teaching the science of well-being class is a Yale professor, so it's Yale students. And she says to them, the day you got into Yale was probably one of the happiest days of your life. You're in, you're going to be going, your future set. And so she asked them in class, how do you feel right now? And they weren't feeling that happy because it's the hard work and it's like a lot required from them and so forth. And she said, that's what happens when you focus on certain things, that it leaves you. And what you really should want is more experiences, because experiences stay with you. And those are the things that have a tendency to lift us higher. Because when you have an experience, first you go through it, and then afterwards you're remembering it, so you feel good. And then when you share it, that's another instance when you feel good. Versus, you get a new car, after a couple months, it's just a car.
Yeah.
So it's really helped me realize one of the reasons I am so happy is I've been doing some of the things they're talking about, and it's helping me understand why other people aren't as happy. So my goal is to help them and maybe lift them up and be happier. Because there was a time when we had meetings with my current job where I would say, scale of 1 to 5 or 10, where are you today? And the numbers weren't always high. And so I started going on a scale of 1 to 10, and I told them, I wake up at 7, Robert. I wake up every day at a 7. And it's mainly because I don't have pain. I used to have a lot of pain from sports injuries and stuff. I got that fixed. I'm at a solid 7. And it goes up from there. On a given day, I'm usually about an 8 or 9 every day.
That's great.
So I'm trying to show people that you could do this. Let's figure out a way to get you there, but yet not be too overbearing where it's like, okay, here she comes. Let's happy.
Yeah, that's right.
You? How happy are you? Are you happy?
Yeah. I'm happy. Everybody's like, what are you going to do next? I was like, I don't know. I said, I really don't. Honestly, I just got through with a client up in the New York, New Jersey area, and that was great. I loved it. It was fantastic experience, but I'm lucky, Pamela, I'm lucky. I've had wonderful people in my life that I'll share this with you. Okay. I'll share this with you. And maybe I'll start with this. But like I said, a couple things. I'm not the smartest guy in the business community. I would like to think that I'm pretty humble, and I would like to think that I care. I care about people. And
absolutely.
So I was sitting there. I never buy first class tickets, right? But after flying so many miles, I got bumped up, and I was sitting there on the plane. I got bumped to first class, and there's nothing special about that, believe me, right? But I started to reflect. I had one of those moments that made me think, what the hell is this kid from a little bitty high school of 90 students, right? Graduating class of 90, who couldn't even in a class of 90, couldn't even crack the top 45. What am I doing sitting here, having all these wonderful experiences and everything that comes with it? And it just made me, so it made me sad, right? Because I didn't, you don't think you deserve those kinds of things, but it also made me really happy that I've been given a life that is unbelievable. I would have never planned this. I mean, in my wildest dream, I would have never thought that my business and personal and professional travels would have taken me down this path. So I love that about life, and it's just life, right? And so when you think about being happy, be happy with life. Be happy where you're planted. To your point, if you wake up as a 7 or 8, hey, you still can go 9, 10. It's easy, right? And don't backslide to 4 or 5. So I love that. So from that perspective, I don't know what's in our DNA, Pamela, that makes us feel that way. I thought about it, but I am just surely a pretty happy guy. And so
yes, you are. I remember you. I said, does he ever get mad? Because he just seems like, oh well, no big deal.
So I like it. So I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with the journey. I'm happy with the things that I've been blessed with, and I don't take it for granted. And in this moment that we're having sharing right now, it reminds me of that thing, of all of those things. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to spend time with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful, and I had a good time.
Yeah, I did too. Sorry about the delay and
it's fine.
technical challenges and stuff like that. But I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'll keep following you. If there's anything I can ever do for you, you let me know. I will happily do that. Okay, whatever I can.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.